Good day for a change. Happy Sunday. And I'm excited to share today with you lessons from Exodus 22 to 24. God gave Moses instructions on property rights and protection of property. Very specific instances were given for restitution for stealing, murder, and killing. So I got a sense that there is a difference between murder and killing. So the intentionality behind it is what makes the distinction. And here we see that often double or more was required as restitution for stealing and death for death, depending on the circumstances. Now, I understand that this isn't to put a burden on the people, but I believe that it was as a deterrent when if you stole, you had to pay back something like 5 times. I feel like all of these were to maintain order and create a civil society among a people who were living in a temporary situation and had the propensity to run amok and live recklessly. There's a strong requirement for compensation in these chapters and instances when disputes must be brought before the Lord Himself for resolution. God also gave guidance for social responsibilities, issues surrounding not rape, but seduction that led to consensual sex, witchcraft and sorcery, bestiality, idolatry, hospitality, the rights of widows and orphans, charging interest on loan, and many, many more. Here, we see God reiterate His command of that the firstborn sons and the firstborn of livestock were His and had to be given to Him. In chapter 23, we see God's expectations, what God's expectations were for the Israelites as it concerns justice. And here we saw strong patterns of truth, equity, integrity, and ethics show up in the way that He intended for them to deal with each other and deal with situations that concern justice. He also forbade them to call on the name of any other gods, let alone even worship them. The Lord also gave them 3 annual festivals to be celebrated in His honor. The festival of unleavened bread, which we have spoken about in previous chapters, which was God commanded them to do in remembrance of their release from captivity in Egypt. And then there's the festival of harvests and the festival of final harvest, where the Israelites were commanded to bring in their first fruits for the former, and for them to bring in the rest of their sacrifices from the rest of their harvest for the later. And I believe that this was just so that they could see or have an idea of how bountifully they had been blessed, and to be hospitable also to the foreigners and sojourners and the poor amongst them. God promised them His presence, represented by an angel who would go before them to terrorize and defeat their enemies. He promised them blessings for obedience, and even explained how He'll defeat their enemies and give them the land. Now that I thought was very interesting, when He said He will drive their enemies out little by little, not just in one fell swoop. And mostly because He said if He did that, the land will be overrun by wild animals and may present difficulty for them. I love how intentional God was here, and very systematic and strategic. The Israelites accepted God's covenant after Moses, who alone was permitted to come close to the Lord to worship, went back and repeated the instructions to them. He wrote the instructions down and read it to the people and confirmed the covenant to them by sprinkling blood on them. Then Moses and the 70 elders saw God, and He didn't destroy them. Now, I've read these chapters many times, but I think I may have glossed over this in the past. So in this time, they actually saw God. And instead of being destroyed, they ate a covenant meal in His presence. That was amazing. And the description of God standing, and then on his feet below Him was like a sea of lapis lazuli. I try to imagine it, but yes, far beyond my comprehension. Then the Lord invited Moses up to the mountain to stay, where he gave him tablets of stone on which he inscribed the instructions and commands so that he could teach the people. Now, what's coming through to me is that here, I remember even when we watched the movie when we were young, the 10 commandments were what was written on the tablets. But here we see that they weren't just 10 because God has given a whole bunch of instructions. So I believe that that's what this was. The glory of the Lord settled on Mount Sinai for 6 days. And on the 7th, Moses went into the cloud to be with the Lord and hear from him, and stayed there for 40 days and 40 nights. Amazing. I wonder what went on there for that long. It must have been awesome. Now let me share my hashtag getting to know God moment. God is protective of his people and his commandments and instructions. And he did not give them to place heavy burdens on the people, but to deter them from sin and to preserve them. I love God's intentionality, don't you? Thank you for joining me today. I'll see you again tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Bye.